All right, fellas, looks like it's fucking happening again. Another meta reset and another way for Social Point to take our hard-earned cash. Um, they've released a set of combat improvements along with a couple other very big bombshells just randomly in the middle of the night last night at like 3 in the morning. In the middle of war, mind you. They decided to fundamentally change how battles work in the middle of a war. I was in an elite war against Army of Chaos. What the fuck were we supposed to do with that? I'm happy that I got all my attacks finished before these changes happened, but they just randomly decided to implement these combat improvements at 3 in the fucking morning mountain time. Just completely arbitrarily. Okay, I guess. That's not a cause for concern at all. Um they dropped a couple really big bombshells here. And we're gonna go look over them because this is kind of crazy. So they posted an article on player support, their website, titled "Combat Improvements." Let's have a read. Um, so this is the same thing that was posted on the Chinchilla Leaks not subreddit, Discord server, but just in a nicer format. So um, they're saying that it's easier and more satisfying than ever to carve through a Monster Legends battlefield. So they're dumbing down the battle system again. This is what they tried to do with Mythics back when they were introduced and they killed off Legendaries, was they wanted to reset the meta because it was getting too complicated. And now we've gone back to square one, we fucked up again, and now we're trying to put the pieces back together by doing the exact same thing that failed fucking 4 years ago. That makes no sense. But you know, it's Social Point. They're great at doing things that don't make any sense. So let's keep reading. Thanks for your feedback and loss of testing. This did not fucking happen. I don't know of a single person that has ever posted a feedback that has ever talked about doing any of this. And I can guarantee you that no testing has ever been done on this because Social Point doesn't like to test their features before they release them. Great. So they, whatever. That's completely irrelevant. Bottom line, they've made some very exciting and big and new and all of the funny buzzwords that you can put in there. Battle improvements to their combat system. Now the first one is actually really good. I really like this one. I think that Resblock, it says here Resblock now affects all resurrection effects, including relics. So essence slots have taken a massive hit because of resurrection block. Who has resurrection block? Goruptor. Who has resurrection block? Phaeton. You know, those are pretty recent, pretty good monsters that have resurrection block that are now able to counter those shitty essence slots. And I do know that before they were pretty mediocre. But looking at the rest of these changes, you'll see. So Resblock, yeah, Essence was one of the most toxic relic slots, in my opinion. I think monsters like Mater and Baba should not have a fucking Essence relic. They're already good enough. There's no reason for Mater to come back and hit you with the toxins after you put in all that work to fucking kill her. She's so difficult to kill, like, on the first go, and she gets a second life, and Essence already gives her a turn if she dies to damage over time. So she gets a free turn, basically, if she dies, to just take coins from you in war. And I think that was really, really toxic. Mater was pretty impossible to counter before this change. But now it looks like it's pretty easy to do just a one and done kill and then not have to worry about it, which I think is cool. I think this change is really, really good. I think Resurrection Block affecting all Resurrection effects is fantastic. It was a breath of fresh air into the game. Too bad the rest of this fucking change had to ruin everything. The biggest hit that this game took was the status casters. They nerfed the status casters to the fucking ground. It's insane how badly they hit status casters. Monsters like Elvira, monsters like Maggie, monsters like Pandolf, who were all floodgates to keep Justin from going around and fucking your ass, are now gone. They get their status casters at the start of their first turn, not at the start of the battle. Which means that in order for you to cast an AoE evasion, your Elvira has to outspeed a Jestin, which is not gonna fucking happen in any universe. So yeah, big floodgates. Megataunt also is dead. Big floodgates are also dead. Even like modern Megataunts were hit by this. Like nobody runs their Megataunts with speed runes. That's unheard of. That doesn't make any sense. And there's no reason to. There's really no reason to. A lot of these Megataunt and Taunt monsters have like a 1-turn Megataunt or Taunt. So there's no reason to send your Megataunt in to burn their Megataunt first turn so that you can cast a Megataunt. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So Megataunts are dead. Skyed Cold, dead. Flame Guard, dead. Jarl Doom, dead. I'm really glad I didn't spend my Glitcherine on Jarl Doom because he's kind of not really working anymore. He's pretty bad. So I was going to rank him because he was quite good before the nerf. But it looks like they nerfed him to the ground to the point where he is just not usable anymore. At least not traditionally. I bet that people can find different sets that they can use for him, and it could work. But yeah, it's rough out here, man. The biggest issue that I have with this is, of course, the nerfing of Elvira. I think Elvira was super healthy for the game with all of these ancestors. Jestin's biggest fucking issue was fighting against Elvira. He would just run his head into evasion while your Elvira holds pact and would just run down the clock until he dies, which was a pretty tried and true and pretty common strategy in top wars to deal with that Jestin. But now that Elvira is not in the picture anymore, Jestin gets a massive buff. And not only that, it's positive status casters and also negative status casters that trigger at the start of their first turn, which means that because you can awaken Jestin first turn with something like Albinasa or the new Kaori monster, you can awaken your Jestin and then have him pierce a light weakness onto you that you can then abuse with your ultimate, which is wild. That's crazy. That is fucking absurd. I've never seen anything like that before. So Jestin got a massive buff. Ganiza got a pretty heavy nerf with the res block stuff. I think this is going to be really healthy for the game. But removing status casters not only removes a lot of strategy from the game, but it removes those very common floodgates that were stopping these ancestors from just completely dominating everything. So yeah, this change here completely ruined the game. In my eyes, at least, until they can clarify what the hell they're planning. Then this is just gonna ruins every single game mode. It ruins Bounty Hunt, it ruins Coliseum, it ruins, maybe less so Coliseum, but it ruins Bounty Hunt, it ruins Wars, it ruins PvP. It kills any sort of strategy, and any sort of floodgating for these really big ancestor threats, which is really shitty, for obvious reasons. So we'll see what the fuck they decide to do with this. I'm not too happy about it, but we'll see. And then area dodge. Area dodge got a pretty heavy nerf. I'm kind of in between about this. I think area dodge in its current state, with the current environment, was pretty healthy. I think the stupid amount of status casters and shit and all of that was a little crazy. I don't think dodge area was like the most broken thing in the world unless you're just bad at the game. So nerfing it is kind of not really necessary, but at the same time, I do understand that area dodge is pretty difficult if you're a noob, and I don't know, maybe this is a way to get the noobs back competitive again. But like, this is kind of counterintuitive to that. Yeah, I'm mixed about this. I think this has pretty heavy repercussions on Everus. Everus was a pretty big dodge area user who was seen a lot. So to have dodge area be now working on charges means that Everus doesn't have that layer of protection that he needs to function at the level that he's functioning at. I don't know if that'll kill him completely. I don't know if that'll just nerf him a little bit. But it is a pretty big hit to his kit. Another thing, it says here that they work on 2 charges. The for a specific number of attacks. Yeah. So if you get hit with an AoE, or if you were to get hit with an AoE, instead burns one of the 2 charges that you have. You can get hit with 2 AoEs before you start getting hit with more AoEs after that. What they fail to say here is that status casters also burn dodge area, which is interesting. That means that monsters like Albinasa or Jasuina Kaori will literally drop their dodge area if if a Mater is on the field, and even breeds in their direction, because Mater has 2 status casters, 2 negative status casters. That just burns dodge area in one go. There's no point to it anymore. A lot of monsters have 2 negative status casters. You know, Justin, fucking Geniza, I can't name any off the top of my head. Fucking Heyman, but he's not gonna be seen anymore because status casters are dead, and like he's just, there's no point. Like, he's too slow to do anything. But there's a lot of monsters that have 2 status casters, 2 negative status casters, that will just sit there and burn all of your dodge area in one sitting, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. So yeah, that's a bit weird. I don't particularly like that very much. I think dodge area was in a good spot right now. It was still a meta threat. It's always going to be. Dodge area is a contender for the best trait in the game. So it's never not going to be used. And I think even now, with all of these nerfs, it's still quite strong. But, it's nowhere near as strong as it was before. And I think that kind of sucks. I think dodge area was in a spot where it was pretty dominant, but it wasn't the dominant strategy. You had Justin, who was doing his thing and piercing everything, and you had dodge area monsters that could sit there and eat a hit from Justin, awakened Justin, because they don't have light weakness cast onto them. But now, like, if you decide that you want to play around light weakness with dodge area, you're going to just lose your dodge area first turn. And you may not have the light weakness on you, but you're still going to get hit with an AoE, and you're still going to get shit cast on you, and you're still going to, take all of this damage. So, yeah, I think the dodge area nerf was a mistake. I think the status casters nerf was a mistake. And one thing that is not on here that they did do a couple days ago was add stamina to PvP. We are going back to the days of the legendary era, where the top players would be the ones that gem the most and the ones with the deepest pockets, which really sucks. I hope that it's a rework of that old system where paying doesn't give you an advantage, but with Social Point and their tendency to prioritize profit over enjoyment, that's not likely. So I'll have to see what that looks like. Man, I'm really disappointed. I spent earlier this morning 500 gems de-runing every single one of my old generation monsters, because the entire reason why they were still useful was because they had their traits. And I think that's the entire purpose of this change was to get rid of those old generation monsters. But those old generation monsters were keeping this game afloat. They were keeping shit locked down. They were making this game enjoyable. Like, there was so much variety, especially in wars. You didn't have to use ancestors all the time, at least not on attack. On defense, obviously, it was pretty much an ancestor game, but you know, on attack, you had all these old monsters with good traits that were able to, you know, buy them turns or have your Resurrector, Uriel, who also took a massive nerf here. Um, you could have your Uriel sit there and just exist and take hits and res your tank or something and have him stay on the field for a while. But now you can't, you know, and that's a lot of strategy just out the window. I don't think we're at a point right now where we have enough tools to completely switch up the meta into something that is more favorable to the new generation of mythics. It just doesn't make any sense. We're still very heavily reliant on old generation mythics to deal with these ancestors. If you go into any ancestor war and you use 3 new generation mythics, you're gonna get shit on. You're gonna get shit on because we just don't have the tools. You know, like we haven't had negative effects removal in over a year at this point, going on 2 years now. How are we gonna deal with those negative effects without negative effects removal? How are we gonna deal with the new ancestor that's coming out that just AoE trait disables everything without a Megaton on the field? Like, how are we gonna deal with that if there's no Megatons on the field? How are we gonna deal with, you know, getting trait disabled and then having fucking your shit rocked by some random ass fast denier like Thetan? Like, how are we gonna deal with that? It makes no sense. You know, so I'm not happy about this. I think the entire player base can echo that sentiment. Anybody who thinks otherwise doesn't really know how to play the game at a high level or isn't really too in touch with the community. I think everything here, except for the res block, was a pretty out of touch decision. You know, and I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed, and I'm hoping that within the next couple of days or you know, within the next week or so, we get a little bit more information as to what the plan is, because right now it's looking pretty bleak. I just don't see how this could be in any way, shape, or form a good change. I hope I eat my words, but for now, I guess we'll just sit here and get punched in the face repeatedly by a man with jaundice. Yeah. So that's my rant for today. Expect a video in the next fucking year, I guess. I don't know. I'll see you guys next time.